Greetings, you guys. I'm as always Mr. Grimreaper 512, and welcome to the very first episode welcome to the very second episode of Rip from the Silverscreen. Now, Rip from the Silverscreen is 31 days of horror, 31 days of. I'm gonna be giving y'all guys my review for 31 horror films. Starting with Tales from the Hood. Now, Tales from the Hood is in 1995. Is a 1995 anthology film that talks about, let's see if I can get my. Hold on, you guys. Apologize for this. See if I can find it here. Okay, so Tales from the Hood is a 1995 anthology horror film directed by Rusty Cundiff and executive produced by Spike Lee. The film stars a plethora of people: Corbin Burnson, Rosalind Cash, Rusty Cundiff, David Alan Grier, Anthony Griffith, Wings Hauser, Lamont Bentley, Paula J. Parker, Joe Torre, and Clarence Williams III. The music is by Christopher Young. So, okay, so the horror film. So, here's what happens. By the way, there's going to be spoilers in this, but it's surprising that y'all wouldn't know anything. Y'all wouldn't see the spoilers. But anyway, so this whole anthology begins. Of course, these three gangsters, these three drug dealers, decide to go to an undertaker's house by the name of Mr. Sims, and the undertaker says that he found what was drugs or something in an alley and had them safely stored in the mortuary. So he asked the dealers to help him get the drugs, and as the four make their way through the building, he relates 5 stories. He relates stories about some of his recent customers. So we're gonna go into each story, and I'm gonna talk to you guys, and I'm gonna give you guys my thoughts on each story that happened in this movie. Now, the first one is RoCop Revelation. Now this one is about a guy by the name of Clarence Smith, played by Anthony Griffith, who is taken to what appears to be a routine traffic stop. You know what I mean? So, excuse me. He learns that the man that is being stopped is Martin Morehouse, played by Tom Wright, a city councilman and a black rights activist who has recently been on a crusade to eliminate police corruption in the city. Newton. This is what I was talking about in a podcast about a few weeks ago. About a week ago, I believe. Week or two ago. These guys, these fucking police officers, took him out of his car. He didn't do nothing wrong. And proceeded to kick the hell out of him. Proceeded to brutally beat him down like a dog. Smith insists that Morehouse should be taken to a hospital. 2 of the officers agree. Smith tells Newton that Billy and Strom should be reported for what they did. Exactly. They need to be reported for what they did. But Newton tells Smith that officers are not to break the code, which means these motherfuckers are dirty as shit. So they push his car into the docks. He shoots he shoots him up. He shoots Morehouse up with heroin. Plants it in the car, and then they throw it off the dock. So we go to 1 year later. Smith has left the police force, and he is a consumed drunk. He sees Morehouse. He sees a zombie version of Morehouse. And he starts hearing his voice, and he starts. So what happens is that they go 1 year later. They go to where Morehouse was buried. All of them. And what happens after that is the most scariest shit you've ever seen in your entire life. And it's hard to put in the words. It's hard to really put in the words how I felt about this scene. But I want y'all guys, I can't put it into words of how I feel about this scene. So I'm gonna let you take a look at this while I talk about the scene itself. Okay, so this is my first time actually using clips for this, and we're gonna take a look at the scene here for it. So this is the scene I was talking about. This shit is scary as fuck. These motherfuckers here are in the cemetery trying to do some horrible shit. See, motherfucker.
Way to go, Stroller. Pretty cool. You know what? You gotta drive here, Billy.
That's not right.
You just split me. You know, I don't need to go, man. I took a piss right before we came out here. Did you hear what I said?
But this was wrong. This was not right that day. These three bastards, him and him, these three bastards went to that cemetery and did this to this poor guy that they killed in the movie. And as you watch, something's gonna happen here. For those of you who have not seen this shit, I suggest you watch it. This is gonna be the funniest crap I've ever seen in my entire life. I want you guys to see what happens when three white dumbasses when these goddamn cops decide to mess with the wrong guy. See? Watch. These scumbags get killed. So watch this shit. So as they're sitting there, as they just saw their friend getting pulled into hell itself, they just initially, you can see how scared they are. These scumbag assholes. You can initially see how scared they are. See? It's their friend. This part scared the shit out of me when I was a kid. And it still scares me to death. One of the scariest damn scenes that I've ever seen in my entire life was that right there. Sorry guys, but one of the most scariest scenes was right there, with what they did, with how they pulled that all together, how they pulled how all that was pulled together the way it was. But that has to be the most scariest thing you've ever seen in your damn life, bar none. It is the most scariest damn thing ever. Okay, hold on, you guys. Something went on. Something's happening here. Wait. Yeah, that's good. Whatever, that's fine. But yeah, what you guys saw there was the scariest shit you've ever seen in your entire life. Now, these guys, after that happens, after that whole situation there happens, they start seeing the cop. They start seeing him and stuff like that. They start seeing images of this guy coming after them, and they ended up getting killed one by one by one. They keep getting killed. So in the next movie, in the next part of this anthology, the horror anthology, they start okay, so the next story on this was Boys Do Get Bruised. Now this one is basically about a little kid who's getting attacked at night by a monster. But would you come to find out, what you realize is that this monster is his stepfather. His stepfather, Carl. Now, Carl is played by David Alan Grier. Now, this was the first time we ever saw David Alan Grier actually this is the first time actually that we've ever seen in David Alan Grier go to a dark place in this. So now the real weird part about this is that at the beginning of the movie, at the beginning of this, what you don't realize is that there is a Walter's body is in a casket when they open it up. It's not Carl's burnt up twisted corpse. Now what happens in this one is that Carl is beating the hell out of his girlfriend and his stepson Walter. Walter goes to this other teacher named Mr. Garvey. Now Mr. Garvey is trying to help him out any way he can with this whole situation. Garvey, when he hears screams coming from inside the house, he goes in there and he tries to help the kid. He tries to help them and stuff like that. Then what happens after that is the most twisted thing I've ever seen in my entire life. The picture of the monster that Walter drew, they start crumpling it up and all that. And then Carl decides to while they're crumpling up Carl's getting crumpled up just like the paper is. So I love that. This one was very hard to watch. The Boys Do Get Bruised. Then we go to another one, KKK Comeuppance. Duke Maker, of course you know, played by Corbin Burnson, is an obnoxious and racist Southern senator. Now this son of a bitch, is a racist politician and stuff like that, trying to get over and stuff. And he lives in this plantation and stuff like that. So what happens is he starts seeing a hoodoo witch and a picture of a hoodoo witch and her dolls. Now I'm going to tell you something about the dolls. The dolls are scary as hell. There's some parts on this where there's some parts in this where he gets attacked by the dolls. He gets attacked by the dolls, and they start killing him. So they start beating the holy hell out of the guy. So what happens is that he starts getting beaten to a bloody pulp by these dolls, and they start killing him. And that was the funniest thing I've ever seen. I'm so happy this dude got what he got in the end. And then we come to the last part. We come to the last story. Okay, now there was a guy by the name of Crazy K in this, who was played by the late Lamont Bentley, who was a violent gang member, and he was a homicidal psychopath who killed many people mercilessly. So what happens is that he ended up getting killed. We don't know until the end, by the way, until he ends up getting killed. So what happens is that he gets taken to this prison, the psychotic prison, and then he is put through the ringer a lot. There's a part in this movie where it's hard to watch. It's hard because you're seeing images of horror. You're seeing images of dark and horror. Ku Klux Klan. I'm talking about Ku Klux Klan. Fucking guys that are getting butchered. Black men and women that are getting butchered and stuff like that. And there was one thing that Cushing said. Okay, Cushing is played by the late Rosalind Cash, who also passed away. There was something that she says that got that hit she said, and I quote, Cain was Cain was the first killer. Cain was the first murderer. How many brothers and sisters have you killed? That got to me. And so yeah, so what happened is that like right after this he's in this room, and then you start seeing images of people who died just coming up into him and trying to ask him why did you do this? Why are you killing people? Why are you putting a bullet in someone? Why are you this way? And he keeps saying fuck off. You know what I mean? This is my interpretation of it. He keeps telling them to go fuck off. But then we go back to the street where he was, and then he is brutally gunned down. He's brutally gunned down by three men. And then we come to the last and final part. So remember the three guys in this story in Hardcore Convent? Well, they're the same son of a bitches that came at the very beginning of this movie. The three drug dealers. So Stack, Ball, and Bulldog are revealed to be the killers for they're revealed to be the killers of these individuals, of Crazy K. And what happens is that they ended up getting gunned. So from what Mr. Sims told them was that Crazy K's boys was retaliation for Crazy K. They killed them. They have no idea what the hell's going on. So when they go down to the cellar, there's 3 coffins, and what's in those coffins? Images, spitting images of them. So what happens is that they open it. This is the funniest shit you've ever seen in your entire life. They start opening it, and they see their own bodies in the coffins. And Sims ends up being the devil. He ends up being the devil, and the funeral home ends up turning into hell itself. So there's that. But also, but yeah, I felt like this movie is the scariest damn movie you've ever seen in your entire life. It is the most horrific goddamn thing you have ever seen in your life. Period. Bar none. And there's a reason for that. You know, even though this film got panned by critics, this film got panned, had negative reviews by critics, it is a cult classic. It will remain that way. And that's why I gave this cult classic a 10 out of 10. This movie was horrific at the time. This movie was horrifying to watch, and with good reason, because it talks about gangs. It talks about them. It talks about the stuff that goes on in the street. It talks about police corruption, which we still, the horrors of the horrors of what we see now, of how we see things now. And it's just horrifying it's horrifying that some of the stuff from this is still happening today. There's still gangs, there's still gang violence, there's still racism, there's still horrific things that are going on. But I don't know. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think. Thank you for watching this episode, the second episode of Rip from the Silverscreen. I'm Mr. Grimreaper 512, and I'll see you all in the afterlife.